Welcome back to the channel. This is the final video in this series of building a full-scale, full-size Treadwell droid. It's part 6 in the series, and it's all about weathering and painting and finishing up this droid. Let's get started. Initially, I painted everything a base coat, so that was all done in the other videos, and all of the materials that I used were wood, metal, aluminum, and so on. So the techniques I'm going to be using on this are going to be techniques that apply to each one of those things. There's no need to paint the aluminum base coat because obviously I want it to look aluminum. My initial step is to score, scratch, damage, and start to break up the paint. I'm just using a small screwdriver here, actually. The screwdriver is just making little scrapes, scratches, dents, and marks in the paint. I'm focusing on the yellow a little bit to make sure that the paint is damaged and doesn't look so pretty and pristine. Initially here, the front panel, the rear panel, the very ends of the droid are all metal. So I'm able to scrape as deep as I want. I can really scratch this stuff and bring out the metal, bring out the aluminum. The droid needs to look like it is had seen a lot of wear and it's really old. So a lot of these panels are going to show wear where paint is chipped off and paint doesn't has been scraped, either because you're removing the panel or you're putting the panel on or whatever the case may be. Basically, I want to go through and scratch up all the surface of the paint on all of the metal parts. I'm also scratching up the yellow paint on top of some of the wood parts because I want to show the green through. I want the green to kind of show through that surface. So I'm kind of using a little bit of a lighter touch. When I do this initial scraping, I'm using a variety of pressure, creating lines and scratches, as well as creating large chunks of missing paint. For the parts that aren't metal, I am using a flat aluminum acrylic paint. And I believe this one's from Tamiya, I believe. And I'm trying to be as arbitrary as possible. I'm using a brush that has some frayed hair on it and it's a bit of a mangled brush, if you will, so that I get little lines and little scratches of silver or aluminum on there. Really going through and trying to hit every area that's not a metal surface. I might hit some of the aluminum parts as well, but I really am trying to focus on areas that aren't aluminum. And what's nice about this paint is that it really looks like aluminum that has scratched the surface. I'm really going everywhere. I'm being arbitrary. I try not to do the same thing on both sides. I want to be asymmetrical. I bounce from top to bottom, back and forth. And most of the time, I typically do this over a longer time than I'm doing here. I kind of did this in all one sitting. I did this whole paint job at one time, where sometimes I'll let the paint job sit for a little bit and I'll come back and do more and do more and do more. I'm really doing this for all of the painted surfaces. The head would have these little wear marks on all of its edges. That's one great thing about the Star Wars universe. It is very lived in. You really can accentuate even some of your mistakes if you have a scratch or a dent or something that you think doesn't look perfect. That's something you can highlight with weathering. That's something that you can go in and make it look like an area that got bashed or was damaged in some way. I'm now adding a rust color, rust finish to certain areas. I'm going into all of my scratches, all of my marks, all of my things. I'm giving them a little bits of highlights and shadows. So the rust color is a reddish brown color, and that reddish brown color does a great job of creating a nice shadow to the edge of the paint, areas that where the metal might be showing through. And it also is really good about creating rust that's starting to poke through. I'm using a small brush so that I can dot this color as well. You don't have to paint lines or get into every crack or anything. You can paint it on so that it maybe looks like water has dripped somewhere, or some area is starting to rust. Sky's the limit here. You can be as creative as you want. This process took a good deal of time because I'm using a very small brush, and I'm doing these little areas and bits, and it's just this is really what I would consider all the pre-painting. So base color, scratch it up, either by physically scratching it up and doing an aluminum dry brush technique on top of it, going in with some aluminum colors to accentuate that dry brushing, to accentuate that stuff. And then I start to do washes. The first wash I'm going to do is going to kind of dirty up the aluminum a little bit. I'm going to use this to make it look like the tool parts moving up and down the aluminum shaft, and create a little bit of a shadow between each one of the tool parts, as if they were, scratching and moving up and down. And I'm going to apply this wash to all of the aluminum, just to in varying degrees. Use a damp brush most of the time. This is an acrylic paint as well. I use a damp towel to wipe off anything that might be too much. The color is very translucent, so you can really build it up in small parts and over time. My second wash is a wash to kind of make the droid look a little dirty and a little dull. The focus here is about dulling the paint overall. I like a light colored wash on dark color droids because it really brings out this lightness or this dullness to the color. Again, acrylic paint, kind of a tan color, because I was thinking sand, and it was a nice accentuation to the green actually. But you can really see how it dulls down the paint. You can also use it on the aluminum parts to dull those down slightly. And the washes are very forgiving. You can, again, really layer them. You can really slowly build up the color. The wash can be adjusted so that it deposits more color or deposits less color. You might make the wash light enough so it flows into panel lines or flows into crevices. Or you can make it heavy enough where when you paint it on, it leaves a noticeable mark. So it's a bit of a art form to put these washes on and towel them off, and put it on and towel it off until you get that right consistency that you like or want. But basically, the whole droid's going to get this wash, and it will do a really nice job of dulling down just kind of the vibrancy of the green. Make sure that the colors stay off the lenses. These washes are super easy to wipe off the lenses. In this case, the lenses are glass, so very easy to clean. My next wash is a black enamel paint with a mineral spirit as the thinner. And what's nice about this paint is when you paint it on, it really starts to flow. It starts to go everywhere. When you paint this on, it starts to drip and run, and it gets thin in the top parts, and then gets thicker at the bottom parts, and it just creates a really great illusion of old metal, something that's been used. It might have oil on it. And I'm doing this to the mast, but I'm going to do it to the whole droid. I want the whole droid to kind of have this dark, dirty look to it. And it's going to really create a nice contrast to the lighter colors, the dull down spots. You might notice that there are drip marks and dots and spatters of paint on the body as it's falling, because I started from the top and was working down. That's all great. That's just adding texture to this whole thing. Wheels get the same treatment. The head gets the same treatment. It's actually really arbitrary, and you can even tone it down from here with a few other techniques. But I'm just using a towel just to kind of towel it off. Things that I think are getting too heavy, or just to give me some way of blending it a little bit. And everything gets this really dirty look to it. And you could use some browns in this as well if you wanted. I'm primarily using black for all of this. I use the light color and I use the black color. I really wanted to keep this paint job as simple as possible because I really wanted to show how fast and easy it can be to weather a droid. It doesn't have to be a droid. It could be anything that you're making that you're trying to make look real, like it's been used or lived in. Giving the eyes a little bit of a cleanup job there. And really getting it all over everything. Again, doing layers of color is the trick. You don't have to do it all in one go. It can be a light layer and then another layer and another layer. It can be multiple colors. You can do a light layer of brown and a light layer of black. Go back with another light layer of brown, and you'll get some great texture and great detail in it. Here, I'm actually just going in and re-scratching up a few surfaces, adding a little bit more silver to a few surfaces. Again, this is that step where you go back, oh, I could have a little bit more rust in this area, put a little bit more rust in that area. Steel wool can be used to this is 000 steel wool. So this stuff will do a great job just to scuff up paint, soften things, without going too deep where it penetrates through the initial paint layer. It's just, giving you some like cleaned up areas, if you will. And you can also use it to soften some things if you wanted. So a little spot on the head where I felt this could be a little bit lighter, and this worked really well. Again, using a little bit more of the flat aluminum color. Just going in and just brightening up a little bit. You want the scratches to have all the washes on them and the dirt and all the grime and all that stuff on there. But then you also want some fresh scratches, things that, penetrated the grime and the grease. So, don't be afraid to go back and add a little bit more lightness. It's like it's just another highlight, if you will, to your paint job. And you can really see my brush is really frayed, and this brush does a great job of creating little lines and little broken up areas. Again, more rust color, and the rust color is just being very arbitrary. You can see there's rust on other things, and I'm just using it as texture, going in and painting in a breakup, if you will, a way of breaking up the colors and just making it all look used and old. This part can, this is something that, I can find myself doing over and over again. Just go, look at it one day. Oh, it needs a little bit more. Oh, look at it another day. It needs a little bit more. So don't be afraid. Here's a picture, or here's a video of the Droid pre-painting, or well, pre-weathering. And this is what it looks like weathered. You can see that it looks dirty and used, and there's so much texture going on. It just adds so much to the overall look of the droid. Finally, with this droid finished, here are its basic movements. The head can look up and down, turn left and right. The droid can drive around a little bit. The end of our painting video here, but I wanted to show the droid in actual motion. For the tracks, I just drove it around a bit on the tracks to just scuff them up and make them look dirty. Of course, you could paint them, you could add dirt to them, and you could really go in and mess them up more. Hope you enjoyed this very, very simple tutorial on how to paint a droid of this size. This paint job took me about, I'm going to say it took me about 5 hours or so to paint the whole thing. I did come back and shoot just some minor touch-ups of adding a little bit more rust to it, like I mentioned. And it's just one of those things. You look at it and you're looking at it and you're looking at it and you're, okay, so it needs a little bit more rust for this, a little bit more rust for that. Hopefully this will inspire you to dirty up your robots, dirty up your droids, and really make them look like they've been in the Star Wars universe. This wraps up the series on building a full-size Treadwell droid. Hopefully you enjoyed this entire series. Let me know if you want to see more content like this in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoy putting these things together, and I really enjoy making this kind of content. So hopefully you are enjoying it as well. And we'll see you in the next build.